Okay, now you brought up the issue of which committee one is in.
Yes.
And now this was an issue that was raised before the delegates broke into committees. People had raised concerns and complaints over which committee they were in. And even as regards the chairman, the list of chairmen and deputy chairmen, things the secretariat promised to look into once they made their presentations to the secretariat. Now, I've observed that it appears as if no changes were made and everything is still as it is.
The thing is that there's something about Nigeria, 170 million people with strong opinions on various issues. It's almost impossible to draw up a list of Nigerians to do any controversial assignment without also having controversy on how the list itself was drawn up. I think all that happened last week was that the leadership, realizing that many people were complaining about which committee they were on, simply said, okay, if you feel very strongly, come and meet us and let's see how we can help. At the end of the day, I think I knew that they would not make many changes, if any. Perhaps they made one or two minor changes, but nobody noticed. And the message is clear. At the end of the day, pack your bags and go to the committee where your name was listed. If you go to a committee where you don't belong, they'll throw you out. So that means if you cannot sneak into the committee on devolution, I hope to grab the microphone. So I think everybody got the message that after all their complaints, bottom line was that you either go to the committee that you were sent or you go home.
And then maybe then pass any information you want.
Thank you. The members, you have their names. If you have a submission, which is what some of us are doing, you have an idea on something, you give it to them. It's no use insisting that you must personally be present to make a point. If you have a wonderful idea, sell it to those in the committee, like we're all trying to do.
Okay. Now, you're a member of the Committee on Immigration.
Well, I think even that immigration is misleading. It's a much wider mandate. It's about citizenship, indigenship, residency, immigration, all those issues. Okay. And I keep on saying that when you mention immigration, people think narrowly about foreigners coming in or going out. But really, the bigger issues, the more controversial items, have to do with issues of residency, indigenship, which has troubled Nigerians all over the country, in the sense of people being excluded or not being given their dues or not being allowed to take part in particular activities because it is claimed that they are not indigenes. Okay. So that is the more contentious aspect of our assignment, trying to resolve that and create an environment where all Nigerians will belong wherever they choose to reside, work and participate.
So how's your first week?
I think it's fine, but personally I've been emphasizing in our committee work that it's not enough to say you reside somewhere. You also have to have met your obligations that come to you on account of residing there. And I think that's how the whole world has moved. You cannot be claiming the privileges that come from living in Illinois, and then you fail to pay your taxes. Okay. And it would be good if we could tie some of these things, some of these benefits to you showing that you've met your obligations. So it's no use being a trader in Lagos State for 40 years and you didn't pay personal income tax once. I think that shows that you have no right to demand privileges. Okay. But it's those who have met their obligations to a state that can rightly get up and say, why am I being denied X, Y, Z? So I think it's good for us to link or tie some of these things to the individual behaving responsibly and meeting his obligations. It is the fact that you reside in a state, pay your taxes, that gives you a right to demand that your children be allowed to attend, state-owned schools in that same state. But if you have failed to meet your obligations, you're earning an income, you're in the informal sector, you're a rich man, you're driving multiple cars, but you've not paid the taxes one day, then I think it's right and proper for anybody to question you. But that should be the same, whether or not you are an indigene.
Okay. But you are now saying you are emphasizing that for the person. What of the state meeting its own obligation to recognize?
It works both ways. Okay. I think we're pointing out that we want to create a responsible society in which persons can move around freely. Okay. Nigerians can be welcome to live anywhere they choose to in Nigeria, which is already happening. In fact, I think many people underestimate the extent to which Nigerians have moved around. I mean, 2014 is very different from the 1960s. Now it's very difficult to find communities, especially where there's substantial activity, commercial activity, without finding Nigerians from all over the place present. I mean, at the end of the day, people vote with their feet to pursue a living, and they will go or move to an area where they have a chance to earn a living, to contribute and earn a reward or an income.
Okay. Now, your committee, you've explained to us what the mandate is for the committee, the thematic trust. But what exactly have you people been able to do this first week?
Well, I don't want to jump the gun and start revealing in detail. I think let's just wait for formal reports and feedback of the committee, because don't forget, the priority is to report on matters on which there's a consensus.
Yes.
So it's no use floating ideas that you're unable to sell to your colleagues. Okay. I think in any case, my interest is in identifying those things on which there is consensus. Okay. Well, so that will come later.
Now, I do know that your committee met with the Comptroller General of Immigration. Your committee was one of the few ones that invited resource people to speak to them. Now, what did you find? What was for you the most interesting part of his presentation to them?
Okay, first of all, I think the logic of the invitation was to bring ourselves up to date with what those in charge of aspects of our work were doing already. And it was useful because apart from telling us what pertains currently, he also shared with us some of their immediate plans for the future. See, because otherwise you'd be operating in the dark. It's no use screaming for something that you don't understand how it's being applied currently and what plans there are for it to change in the immediate future. So it was a good interaction. We also asked questions, he gave answers. So it brought some clarity on some issues that might have otherwise been contentious. Okay. But I'm sure one or two other committees will do the same. That is, if they stumble on something upon which it is clear that the public officer can shed more light, by all means invite him.
There's a committee on public finance. They have a 14 list like organization that they've invited. Yours is the only one you're inviting?
I think so far, yes, but I'm not trying to foreclose that if issues come up that we won't invite somebody else.
Okay, but I was asking, what did you find interesting in his presentation?
Well, there were some things that we knew already, but he had numbers, he had facts. For instance, he told us the number of legal border posts in Nigeria, and he told us the number of illegal border posts that you can identify. Sorry, I meant illegal border posts, illegal routes for border crossings. Of course, as we all know and hearing from the experts, the number of illegal crossings, that is the avenues for illegal crossings, are about 5, 6, 7 times the number of the illegal crossings. So which means that Nigerians living along the border every day create new routes for going across, going out of Nigeria, coming back into Nigeria. But don't forget that in some of these places, you would even have to ask an expert to tell you exactly where the boundary stops. Well, there's no fence. Indeed, there was a joke about some people where they build their house. If you do a proper border demarcation, their living room is in Nigeria, and their bedroom is in Benin Republic or in Cameroon, because nobody marked the ground. So the fellow's house, half his house is in Cameroon, the other half is in Nigeria. But we discussed all these things and brought ourselves up to date.
Now, I would like to take you on one of the things I observed when I spoke with some delegates. Now, while we'd raised this concern of time and duration allocated for committee work, as committees now sit down, plan, do a framework for how they propose, it's becoming more obvious that the time may not be enough. Have you come across this concern?
See, how do you define time not being enough? Take my committee. We broke up yesterday at about 6:15 p.m. We exchanged email addresses. We were all supposed to think about some issues and make submissions. You were free to use the entire night. I think people have to form the habit of working after hours. And it's only after you can say that even when you're working after hours, the time will still not be enough. If you want to only work from 10 to 6 p.m. every day and go home and sleep, it is possible that if contentious issues come up, the time might not be enough. But I think eventually we have no choice but to use all the available hours of the clock to resolve matters. And some of the discussions even carry on outside of the conference, because we're doing homework, we're comparing notes, we're asking questions. Somebody writes something, he sends it to you. A delegate, you look at this email, it sets you thinking, you reply. So whether we like it or not, this is 2014, and there's a physical conference taking place. There's also a virtual conference taking place, and over half the delegates definitely are well versed on use of emails. So the discussion continues.
So you don't envisage the need for...
I think what I'm saying is that I don't support. That's very clear. I don't support seeking extension of time or any such thing. Not because it is, I can prove on a blackboard that it's a mortal sin, but I think it's also about gaining the confidence of Nigerians. And I've already explained this before. I don't want to be accused by anybody that we prolonged the assignment so that we could earn more allowances. I think it's important that we set the right example, because some of us have been critical of the National Assembly, the way they carry on, and we want to behave differently if possible.
1 week gone, one more week to go. For the committees, this is the home stretch. They have to agree among themselves, complete their work, and be ready to present their recommendations to the full House. This is a kind of pressure that makes tensions rise and emotions boil over. I'm expecting this coming week will bring more of these. As usual, I promise to bring you every major point at the National Conference on this program, Rethinking Nigeria, with added perspective from our regular guest at Ted Opita's side. Till then, I'm Lanre Lasese. Bye.